So today I'm going to show you how to take such a boring shot and turn it into this using some Photoshop magic after the intro. What is going on YouTube? My name is Mo and I'm back yet with another exciting tutorial. Now before I start, go ahead and subscribe now and ring the bell so you don't miss out on all the cool stuff that I create every week. And in case you're wondering why am I carrying this stick, I don't know. Alright, so back to the tutorial. Now if you remember, earlier this year I went with Audi and got some awesome rolling shots within Bahrain F1 track. And I made actually a video about 8 tips for a better car rolling shots. I'll leave a link to the video in the description below. Alright, back to the photo. This photo was actually dead. I didn't even consider retouching or working on this photo. Yet a few months later, I went back to the set and I was like, let me see if I can revive some of the shots. And I took this as a challenge and as an example, and I'm going to walk you through the Photoshop file right now.
Alright, so many of you knows that I use Lightroom to process my RAW files. Now here's the shot before I do any adjustment, before prepping it to Photoshop. You can see that it's a bit dark, dull, and it requires a lot of fixes for it to be a usable photo. Now you can see the settings in which I've shot this photo at. I shot it at 1/30 of a second, at f13, and so on forth. You can find out more about how I shot these in my other video tutorial in which I explain how I shot these awesome, cool photos. All right, so I made some basic adjustments just to prep it to Photoshop. And this is the before, and now this is the after. And these were minor adjustments. I just increased a bit on the exposure, decreased the highlights, brought up the shadows, and took down the blacks. All right, let's move into Photoshop. Now let me walk you through different layers. So the first thing I did is desaturate the photo. And the reason why I desaturate the photo is that allows me later on to go back and bring selective colors back in the photo. And I'm going to show it to you in a bit. All right, so the channel mixer with the red filter on and an opacity of 26%, and that's mainly it. I then added a dodge and burn layer, and that basically emphasized the shadows here and there and some of the lines on the road. So this is the before and this is the after. All right, so here's where I add back the colors using the camera raw filter. This is the before and this is the after. Let me open up the raw filter. All right, so from the raw filter, you can see that I've made the photo a bit warmer. I brought down more highlights and I added a bit of clarity. So the magic is actually happening in the Hsl filter. So within here is when I added the colors back, and you can see I added the reds. Basically the reds, the orange, the yellow. I removed the greens, the aquas, and the blues, and added a bit of purples and magenta, and that makes a lot of difference in the photo. The focus is on the reds more than anything else. And then went to the hue and actually played with the hues of the reds again, just to give it that tone. And if I move the slider, you can see the different tones of the reds changes when I do so. All right, there's one more thing that I did over here is I added the graduated filter and basically just darkened the ground up. Just here at the front, and that's it. All right, moving onwards, I started introducing some overlays like these leaves that are in the foreground, and they're kind of blurry because the camera is not focusing on them. Now, if you're wondering where I got these overlays from, I'll leave a link to one of my videos in which I explain all of these overlays and how I use them and where I downloaded them from in the description below. So make sure that you check it out. All right, so moving onwards, I added more overlays, more leaves, and I added a mask just to basically remove, well, some of the leaves, actually a single leaf that I just didn't like how it was placed, so I removed it. I also added just a bit of motion blur to give them that motion feel. kind of thing. And I added more of those leaves, but they were different sizes, different colors, and they were a bit smaller. And I added a motion blur. Now remember, Photoshop crashed before I was able to completely save the file. It auto-saved some of the content, but there's one thing missing here, which I did. And what I did with these is I added a bit of zoom motion blur next to these. And I'll tell you why. That's mainly because if the car was passing just next to these leaves, they will be like moving like hell. And right now it doesn't portray that. That's okay for these, but these, not so much. Now let me show you how this was done. So I go to filter, blur, and radial blur. And that brings up this. All right, so I'm going to select best, and I'm going to, well, technically position it somewhere here, and it's going to be zoom, and I'm just going to increase that a bit. So this is a bit of trial and error until you get it right. And I'm going to click OK. All right, now that it's done, these looks good. However, these look way bad. So what you are going to do is basically mask them out. So I'm going to use a brush, flow of 100% black brush, and I'm just going to mask over these. So I can just remove them off the photo and get rid of them. But that's it. All right, so once I was done placing and playing around with the leaves, I looked at the photo and I was like, it's missing the oomph factor. I like that word, oomph. And so I added another overlay. And you can do this perhaps with gradient maps, but since I had these in hand, why not use them? So this is how they look on screen. And this is how they look in normal. Of course, I dropped the opacity to 80%. Let me put that at 100%. You can see it's like a orange kind of color here, and then moves to kind of purplish into dark. And when you set this to screen, it's just going to overlay it like so. So I dropped down the opacity to 80% just to decrease. It's a taste thing. It's very subjective. You can keep it at 100%. For me, I found 80% is just the perfect number for now. And of course, I did the same thing with this layer, which is a light leak kind of an effect. Now let me show it to you and put that onto normal. And this is how it actually looks. If you put that on screen, this is how it actually going to look like. All right, moving onward, I added a color lookup, and that's my own LUT, Move Warm. I'll leave a link to download my LUTs in the description below. And set the opacity at 48%. I then added a curve to just basically darken the blacks and lift just a tiny bit of it over there. So this is the before, and this is the after. Now it didn't end up here. I tried saving the file, however, I couldn't save it as a TIFF, so I saved it as a PSB and then flattened the image and saved it as a TIFF and then carried on with my edit. All right, so within this file, I only added 3 different adjustments. So one is the selective color. And within this is the before and this is the after. I just wanted to bring those whites back on the car. And with selective color, if you go to the whites and bring all these sliders to the left, of course, don't touch the blacks, it will give you this desired effect. If I put that at 100%, you can see it makes white whiter. So let's see the before, and this is the after. And I just dropped down the opacity to 82%, and that's it. All right, so the next thing I did was I've darkened this area of the car because I felt it was too bright for it within that edit that it was bothering me. So I traced around this area with the pen tool, and I used the curve to darken that area like so. All right, so the last layer is a camera raw filter, and this is how the photo looks so far, and that's how it looks after. Let me open it up for you. So within the main targeted adjustments, I dropped the blacks, I increased the clarity, added a bit of dehaze to remove that a bit of haze that was here and that was a bit bothering me, and added kind of good amount of vibrance. I just wanted this photo to be a bit vibrant. All right, moving onwards, I sharpened the photo, as you can see, and I added a mask, so it's very selective. White is getting sharpened, black is not getting sharpened, and so on forth. So I haven't done any adjustments in the HSL. I actually went to the effects. I added a bit of vignetting, and of course I protected the highlights. If you see the top left of the screen, like so. And I went to the camera calibration, and played around with the values. And I believe if you've been following me along, I've been doing that a lot lately. I'm kind of just enjoying the color shifts in the photo. Now, each of these will play a role on what the hues of these primary colors are gonna look like. So it's again, it's a very subjective thing. I suggest that you play around with it, and it's a taste thing at the end of the day. It's whatever feels right for your eyes, and sometimes you have to train your eyes in order to get this one right. And that's mainly it. So let's look again. The before photo, this is how it looked before. Actually, it looked worse because it was too dark before taking it into Lightroom. And this is how it looks after. Hoo-hoo. Amazing work. Come on, you have to give me that credit. Thank you. Just kidding, YouTube. All right, so we've reached the end of this tutorial. Now, if you have any question for me, please leave me a comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in some awesome next video.